Hi, it's Scott Allen, and in part 6 of my Lions series I'm going to start by looking at the Welsh attack patterns, so then we can compare it to the Lions attack patterns. The Welsh attack pattern has basically two components to its structure. The first is a punch group that are going to look to take the ball straight up in midfield. The second is a spread group that are going to look to take advantage of wide opportunities. If the opposition have marked up and covered the spread group, then the punch group takes the ball forward, tries to suck some more defenders in so the spread group can have it on the next phase. So in this instance there was nothing really on for the spread group, so the punch group takes it forward once. Now the spread group's going to try and find some space out a little wider. You can see in this clip that the movement of the ball across field drags the defenders across to that far side of the field. Wales normally follow that up with the same way play, which drags them further across field. Now in this case there's nothing on for the spread group, so a punch group takes it up again. But now an opportunity starts to arise for the spread group. The Wallabies' defensive line is quite narrow, and therefore Wales can target that defensive end that I highlighted. So now it's the spread group that takes over, and although it's not a clean break, they get the ball well over the advantage line. Now the Wallabies have set their defensive line really well. They're spread right across the field, and there's nothing on for the spread group. So we need a punch group to take it forward. As you can see, the punch group doesn't have to be just forwards. In this case, it's the 10 who takes it up. Now whilst Wales might be looking for a spread group, there isn't one really set, so there's going to be another punch group take it up. And then to try and drag the defence to the far side of the field, they'll go into their familiar pattern of a same way play. And when that play breaks down a little bit, they reset, but again there's still room on the far side of the field, and you can see Phillips motioning, go around, so we'll go same way, try and drag the defence over to that touchline. Now when a half break is made like this, you're either going to find space directly where the break was made, or going wide as the defenders have come close. In this case, Wales played directly to try and go through where the break was made. It's a bit scrappy, so we go into a punch group. Now in the background you can see the Wallabies defenders moving around to get out and cover a spread group. Wales get a penalty here, but they were set for a spread play. So here's another example in 2012. Kick fielded by Halfpenny and he's gone backwards, which is not an ideal way to start your attack. But immediately the outside attackers can see that the defensive end for the Wallabies is quite narrow, and they need to go straight into a spread, no punch required here. And again, although it's not a clean break, they get well over the advantage line. Now we need to look at what's going to happen on the next phase. They're up against this touchline, so there's no room for a same way play, and the Wallabies have got a good defensive line right across the field, so there's not really a spread on yet. So we have a punch group. On the next phase we can see the Wallabies have still got a good wide line, so there's no opportunity for a spread at this stage, another punch required. Now the punch on that phase still hasn't dragged defenders in, so there's going to need to be another punch to try and drag some of those wide defenders into the middle. Wales gets a penalty and that ends the play, but already you can see a bit of a pattern developing that I'm showing you. Now the pattern doesn't have to start with a punch. In this case there's room for a spread, even though Wales are on their own line. There's lots of talk about Wales being a conservative attacking team who play very directly, but they're prepared to run the ball from within their own half when there are opportunities on. And another example from that same end of year tour game last year, even though the ball's inside their own half, the scoreline's tight in the first half, Wales recognise there's an opportunity and they move the ball into a spread straight away. No need to start with a punch from somebody like a Jamie Roberts or one of their big wingers. Fortunately in this case Cliffy Palu got back and shut down the move. Now again, from their own line, in the test matches in Australia in 2012, we've got a punch first up, and they're going to go same way into another punch. They're trying to drag defenders to the far side of the field, and it works, because when they look up, they find that they've got a front rower in Tautafa Polota as the defensive end. So they now know that they can get out of their pattern and go straight into a spread. Again, almost from their own line, they're prepared to run the ball. Now at this stage it looks like the movement's broken down, but Phillips sees that the ruck defenders for the Wallabies have been very slow in getting there, and some poor tackling makes a good break downfield. What we need to look at is what they do after they've made the break. There's both a spread and a punch opportunity on the next phase. The biggest one is probably the spread, but they need to have both a punch group and a spread group so they can hold the defence in midfield, which they achieve. With the punch group holding the interest of the midfield defence, the ball's going to go behind them to the spread group, and it's a great read in defence by Rob Horne, who rushes up and shuts down the link man to stop the ball getting out wide. Now Wales try to continue it same way, but the movement breaks down a little bit, so they get back into their familiar pattern of same way, drag the defence over to the far side of the field, and then they'll try and look for something to come back this way. On this final phase, they decide to go direct and run straight into David Pocock. In this next example, there's an opportunity for the spread group out wide, but they've still got a punch group or a mini punch group in the form of Jamie Roberts to hold defenders. And you can see they've got a 2-on-1 outside if Davis passes that ball. He steps back inside. It's not the right option. But once it's broken down, watch how they go into the familiar pattern. Same way again. Go to the far side, drag defenders across, and then as we come back on the next phase, what's on? The spread group isn't really in position, so they're going to go with the punch group first. Now what they need on the next phase is try and have a punch group and a spread group, but the punch group's only got one player in it, Toby Faletau. He gets the ball, he'll be a 1-out runner. Goes behind him to Jamie Roberts, who effectively becomes another punch group, but he gets isolated too, and the system broke down there. It's a turnover to the Wallabies. Here are some examples from the final 2013 Six Nations game against England. The English defence is pretty well set, so they're going to go with initially a punch. This time they use Cuthbert to punch the ball forward. They're still looking for a spread, but there's nothing on, so they're going to need another punch. Now they've got no room to keep spreading to this side, so they go into their same way pattern and just try and drag defenders over to the touchline. Again, see Phillips motioning the forwards around. Familiar pattern that you've seen over years with Wales. Now they open up. What can they look at? Is there anything on for the spread group? The spread group's not really set, and the English defence is quite well spaced across the field, so they go in with a punch. Again, they look up. Still nothing on for the spread group because the English have spaced their defence quite well, so punch it back up through the middle. Jamie Roberts punching it this time. Now on the next phase, it looks like there might be some opportunities for the spread group, but the English defence is still pretty good. They move it to the spread group. Davis realises it's not back on, brings it inside to effectively make it into a punch group, and then again into the same pattern, same way, drag it to the sideline. Once again, Phillips looking for forwards to come around the corner, and they're in position. Wales get a penalty and the play ends. So in this example, Cuthbert fields the ball inside his own 22 and decides to run it back. Wales are not always this direct conservative team that people talk about. So it's a punch with players in there. When we look up, there's a spread opportunity. The defensive end for England is quite narrow. Now even though Wales are on their own 22, it's a very tight game that'll decide the Six Nations. They're still prepared to attack where there is space. They're not afraid to use the spread early. Doesn't work out this time, but you can see the general intent. And in this final example, there's 20 minutes to go. It's 12-3 to Wales, but that's not enough to win them the Six Nations, so they need to score some tries. England turn over the ball, and Wales immediately go into a spread play to isolate the English winger who's here on his own. That try really sets the game up for Wales, and they go on to win the Six Nations. In part B of this video, I'm going to show you some of the 2009 Lions attack patterns and the similarities with Wales, which might help us work out how the 2013 Lions are going to attack.